You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640 is Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And we're going to go beyond the box score with Jackie Ray. Jackie Ray, I know you saw the story, the final for the 2024 Copa America between Argentina and Colombia. Eventually, Argentina won, but the final match was delayed for more than an hour and a half because there was a security lapse, a breach in which fans broke through one of the main entry gates. They basically had a stampede they had to get under control before they had the actual event. This is Copa America. This is not the World Cup, but the World Cup is coming to where? Los Angeles. It is coming to the United States, and I wonder, and tell me if you agree with this, there are all sorts of concerns about whether LA would be ready for the Olympics. There are concerns about whether our infrastructure, our mass transit will be ready to accommodate them. I'm wondering whether the city will be ready for the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And that's a different type of fandom which will be descending on Los Angeles. It's not like the Super Bowl. We've had a Super Bowl. It's not like the NBA championship. We've had multiple NBA championships. It's a different animal. Am I reading it wrong?
I don't think so. I think my first understanding of how you said, the level of fandom, like I am a diehard LeBron James fan. I'm a diehard NFL fan. I'm going to stay up and watch games maybe, but I'm not going to inconvenience myself. This is a fan base that my first exposure to them, being from Denver, Colorado, was moving to Hollywood is the first place I lived. And then listening to soccer fans at 3 a.m. and knowing that the bar down the street had to be open for these fans. You know what I mean? Like, and not only did this bar had to be open for the fans, police presence had to be there because the fans were spilling out of the bar into the parking lot. It was like they were tailgating, but they wanted to be together, and you would hear it and it woke me up. And then you would see these same people go to work. Mm-hmm. It's like, how are you doing this? It's a level of fandom. And when I saw that stampede, my first thing was, yes, that's right. And it was unnerving because for them, the fact that they don't have tickets doesn't mean anything to them. What matters to them is, this is a game. These are my players that I want to see. This is my team that I want to support. I'm getting in. And a ticket is just a formality. So it's a different level. Like you said, it's almost like they feel like they are a part of the team. And I know we say that fans feel like that a lot, but this is an actual example of what that really looks like.
And for those who may rebut and say, yeah, but we have the LA Galaxy, we have LAFC. It's not the same when you're talking about the World Cup. If you've ever seen a match between USA and Mexico, like the Coliseum, you get just a little bit of a glimpse. The fireworks which may go off in every neighborhood. It is a different animal. And in the way that I know that we're not ready for the Olympics in 2028, and that's more a logistical nightmare more than anything. Right. I'm not so sure that LA is ready for the World Cup and all that comes with it, which is more than just the security apparatus and managing the events, but just the hooliganism of the fans is just completely different inside and outside the stadium. If we've been paying attention as far as what's been happening around the world with the various soccer leagues and events, I don't know if we're ready for that here, because it's definitely coming.
No, but, and I think what people in LA might want to kind of comprehend, if they can, is for us, it's a game. For people in the world, it is a culture. This is part of their culture. You will see little kids in dirt villages with barely running water playing soccer. You know what I mean? So this is part of their culture. So to be on the world stage is a huge moment in time. This isn't just a game. It's not a game for them. It's not a game for the players a lot of times. So this is something that they want to be part of. And I think for us, we're just like, what is the big hoopla? Well, the big hoopla is for us, especially here living in LA, well, we got 9 million different things to do than to watch a game. You know, we can watch a game from our favorite bar. We can watch a game from Big Bear and go skiing. We have so many other things to do. There's a very large group of people in the world that this is part of their culture. This is their moment. And we just have a difficult time comprehending that. And I can tell you, living in Long Beach, and I know there's some of those things coming here in Long Beach for the Olympics, I'm trying to be out of Long Beach because I don't want to get trapped here because I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think we have the infrastructure, but more importantly, I don't think we have the mindset to understand how important this is to people outside of us.
Let's talk about that mindset. We know that the U.S. men's national team just fired its coach due to the underperformance of the team in Copa America. We lost to Uruguay and, we barely beat Jamaica. We lost to Panama. Going back to your point about it's a mentality and culturally, it's not our culture. Yeah, we like soccer, but we don't love it in the way that these other countries do, where players have been beaten, they've been killed for underperformance. We've seen where teams have failed at the Olympics or the World Cup, and then fans take matters into their own hands. We may get mad, we may even turn over a few cars, but it's not quite the same. Have you been following the U.S. men's national team and how we still haven't been able to rise to the level of competition? We have all the resources. We have the talent, I'll say, pool to pull from, but we can't measure up to the rest of the world for some reason.
And I love that you say that, because I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who is a diehard. He's from Argentina, so obviously soccer is a big deal to him. And so he was the one who kind of let me know how soccer was the real name, because I was like, is it football or is it soccer? He's like, it's literally both. And he broke down the history of that for me. He's really entrenched in it. But he was saying, it's like, America dominates in all these other sports. And I said, well, because for us, like, the way we look at football and basketball, we look at these things differently. These are things that are ingrained in our culture. Soccer is not. It's just not. And it hasn't caught on with the fan base the same way. I feel like soccer is one of those things that kids end up playing, but little kids literally start out at like 4 and 5 wanting to play basketball, wanting to play football. This is something that's ingrained in them. And so I don't think that we have the foundational culture, if you will, for children to really look at this as something that they want to do. I think this is something they end up doing. And because of that, that trickles over to the fan base. So we don't push as hard as saying like, hey, we want this, we want that. As fans, we'll say, trade this person, do that. We're so ingrained when we have our favorite team, and then we speak out. You hear about soccer every now and then. If you're a sports fan and you're a sports enthusiast, even you got to look for it on ESPN. It's not so in your face that we are going to produce the quality type player that we should.
I would add to that, if we had the LeBrons of the world, the best physical specimens and athletes who chose to play, and he played basketball and football. If someone of his athletic caliber were to choose soccer from an early age, we might have a different conversation. In other words, if soccer were played in the inner cities and the urban areas, and it was played in every neighborhood in the way that we play basketball and football in every neighborhood, we probably would have a different talent output. We look at baseball today. As far as African Americans go, we don't have the same type of presence because it's not featured like it was in the 70s or 80s. And you see fewer African American players in baseball, for example. Like you said, people end up in soccer, but we're not having the best of our talent pool starting out as soccer and playing soccer all the way through. Part of it, which is because it's not the moneymaker for the individual athletes that we see with basketball and football.
Right. Which also makes sense why we have the women's soccer, international soccer team that is pretty good, because girls do go into that a little earlier. So because that's something that's ingrained, like, oh, you can't play football. You can't, why don't you try this? So it's ingrained in young women a little earlier. So that's why I think we have a better talent pool in that. But yeah, it's not part of our culture. That's the bottom line. If it was part of our culture, we would excel in it.
When we come back, we have to talk about two issues. We have the Olympics. We made mention of that earlier and how that's a different culture. Well, we know that Palestinian athletes are being told to take their resistance to the Olympics. Jackie Ray, we kind of previewed this. Now it's coming to fruition. And also the untimely passing of former NFL star Jacoby Jones, who died in his sleep. We have to talk about that. It's later with Mo Kelly, going beyond the box score. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And the Olympics are almost here in the sense of Paris, not here in Los Angeles, but Paris starting just days away. And I see that Palestinian athletes, they're going to have a presence in the Olympics. In fact, there are going to be 8 Palestinian athletes taking part in the Paris Olympics. And they are being told, and they're going to go along with being symbols of the resistance during the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. This is from a Palestinian minister said yesterday as the official delegation left the occupied West Bank. Here we are, Jackie Ray. We know there will be demonstrations on some level. There's going to be a heightened focus on these athletes. What do you make of this moment, and what do you expect?
I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm very proud of this moment for these athletes, especially to be able to, I feel like for them, it's such an honor to know the terror and the horrible things that are happening to your people in your country. And you get to step up and bring more attention and awareness to that on the world stage. I think it's such an honor. I think it's a heavy honor to bear, because it does put the microscope on you, but I think it is an honor nonetheless. And I'm very, very proud of them for taking that step to do that. I've said it before again. I'm going to be proud of the protesters. Obviously, we don't want any violence, but protesters who are going to stand up and use their voice to raise awareness of the horrors and atrocities that are happening in Gaza. I think that's a beautiful thing as well. So, I understand people might disagree with that, but the history is there. It is there for you to read. It is there for you to understand. And I think that an atrocity to a people anywhere is an atrocity to people everywhere. And so I'm very, very proud of this moment, especially for these Olympians, because, again, having to perform at your best amongst elite athletes when you know the travesties that are happening to you back home, it's a mental weight that can impact your physical performance. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do perform.
How do you expect networks around the world to perform, to address it, to cover it? How do you expect news networks around the world will handle this? Now, we know it's carried by NBC here in the United States, but the world is tuning in. Do you expect the world, in a news coverage sense, to turn away or to lean in?
I expect everyone outside the U.S. to lean in. I think the United States is a pro-Israel situation, so I feel like whatever media attention they get, it's going to be downplaying maybe their cause and what they're there for, and just perhaps highlighting their athleticism. But I think everywhere else around the world where they practice true journalism and try to be unbiased as much as they can, I think they will address it. I think they will say, hey, it's bigger, it's beyond the box score, essentially, for these athletes. And they're going to address their cause and what they're saying, because I'm sure these athletes are going to use every moment that they can to say something. So I think that we will see a lot more of that, if we go online, but I don't think we'll see that much here in the United States.
And before we go, sad story, Jacoby Jones, former wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, who scored 2 touchdowns in the Ravens Super Bowl win years ago, died over the weekend at the age of 40. Some published reports listed that he died in his sleep. No cause of death is given. What do you make of, as best you can, this moment? Because obviously no one was expecting this, but we do know that athletes, by and large, especially when it comes to professional football athletes, do not have long lives in many instances.
Yes, unfortunately, anytime I see an NFL player die young, and he just had a birthday, so he literally just turned 40 last week, I always want to see the autopsy report, because 40 is way too young to die. Especially in your sleep, I guess the upside is he did die peacefully if the reports are true and he died in his sleep, so there was no suffering. But now you have to wonder what was going on with his mind. Was there something because of the repeated hits? How much does CTE play a part in this? Was there something that he played through? Because unfortunately, that happens a lot as well. Athletes will play through certain injuries. They'll get pain medications and things of that nature. Did that make something worse that turned into a fatal injury or a fatal instance later? So it's an unfortunate situation. I'm sure his parents, no one wants to outlive their children, and I'm sure the people closest to him are very shocked and bewildered by this. But more importantly, I think this is going to be something that the NFL needs to pay close attention to as well, because this is going to be another hash mark on the reasons why people are probably going to encourage their children not to play football, because we want you to have a long life after it. So it's something I think that football fans, football administrators, and everyone should be paying close attention to.
From your lips to God's ears, we hope that the NFL will take a closer look at this. I, too, will wait for the autopsy. So hopefully we can get some more information and clarity around this. Jackie Ray, it's always good to talk to you. Hopefully it'll be for better reasons next week.
Yes.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I'm a member of Gen X.
Now slow it down.
Let me get it straight. Yeah. I'm a member of Gen X. Mark Rana, you're a member of Gen X.
We're the same.
Yes.
In almost every way.
We're twins.
People can barely tell us apart.
Elmer, who is running the board tonight and our technical director, you're a millennial, is that correct?
Yes, I'm a millennial.
Okay, and Tawala would be Gen X as well, right on the cusp of Gen X. As I get older, I look at the world through the passings of people in my generation, for the most part, or people who were very important as I was growing up. And this past week or so has been really hard on Gen X. You could not be a kid and not know who Richard Simmons was. We take physical fitness and shows today and influencers, as it were. We take it like, yeah, that's just Tuesday. That's the way it always is. Well, before all of that, there was Richard Simmons. He arguably was the first national figure taking the world by storm with his television show, his fitness routine. He was a larger-than-life personality. I wonder what Richard Simmons would have been like if they had social media back then. He was tailor-made for social media. But with the news that Richard Simmons had passed, it reminds me not only of my mortality, that I've made this statement before, more and more people from my childhood are passing away. And it makes you, or at least it makes me, look at life just a little bit differently. And even though Dr. Ruth Westheimer was 20 years older than Richard Simmons, you got to think about the 1980s and her impact, her imprint on the 1980s, and how she fundamentally transformed the conversation of sex. I'm quite sure Elmer and his generation, Robin, who's also working the board, if they were to look at all the things that Dr. Ruth had to say, they'd probably say, like, what? What's so special about this? Well, it was groundbreaking that back then. You didn't talk about sex on daytime television. You just didn't. You didn't talk about intimacy. You didn't talk about the sexual act with great detail in the way that she did in a pre-cable era. She was groundbreaking in ways which is hard to explain if you didn't live through that time. But she was very much a part of my upbringing. You think of television figures. And I know one or some of my high school yearbooks have some sort of homage to Dr. Ruth. The people in pictures who made up the year. She was in there somewhere because she was that big a deal. And of course, now this was a little bit after me when I was in college. And Twala, you could possibly speak to this. Beverly Hills 90210 was so big a phenomenon. People may talk about Friends. I would say that's like an analog, a comparable type show. But Beverly Hills 90210, I don't know if you could have gotten bigger for the younger generation. It was filmed at Torrance High School, which is one of my rival high schools. It was local in that regard. But the whole idea of Beverly Hills 90210 was such a big damn deal. And Shannon Doherty's one of them big ass deals back then.
Oh, it was huge. That show was everything to that generation, to our generation. It meant the world because these seemed like real people. They seemed like people who were in your neighborhood, who went to your schools, who were dealing with LA local things. And that was huge. And then to go on from that to Charmed, which spawned so many spinoffs, and Charmed itself became a phenomenon. She was a veritable star.
Dr. Ruth passed away at the age of 96, okay? Older than either of my parents. There's really no connection there. Richard Simmons, I told you about, he was older, but a little bit younger than my parents. Shannon Doherty was a contemporary. They're about the same age.
Yeah.
So watching her over the years go through these many changes and struggles with cancer. I'm watching it and acknowledging it, but I'm feeling it as someone who is my age. When I was in high school, she was in high school. You know, when I was a young adult, she was a young adult. When I was a child, she was a child. So we were at the same lamppost of life at the same time. And her passing hits me just a little bit differently, if only because 53. You know, they're about, for the grace of God, go I, as they say. Now, I can't speak for Mark and what he was watching in terms of TV growing up, whether Dr. Ruth was on or Richard Simmons and Shannon Doherty, but all three were on my TV.
Well, you remember that, especially Dr. Ruth and Richard Simmons, they would go on like Letterman's show. And I mean, the shtick from both of them from different angles was to shock him.
Yes.
And he would insult them.
And make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so if you watch some of the old clips from Letterman with Simmons in particular these days.
What was it? The fire hose? Fire extinguisher.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
recently,
they had a fire extinguisher gag. And let me just say this.
Yeah.
The joke was when Richard Simmons got to be too, air quotes, flaming.
Right.
They used a fire extinguisher on Richard Simmons, which was
things don't age very well.
No, they don't. No, but I'm saying that's how big a personality he was back then.
Yeah, totally. And it's just, you can tell culture has changed a lot because you wouldn't really have such a flamboyant character on just to mock the person at this point ever. But
no.
You know, things are just different now. But he was such a tremendous sport about it. I don't think everybody understands. That's all pro wrestling, okay?
Yeah.
They all know what they're going to do before they go on stage. He wasn't sandbagged by any of that.
And I think about Richard Simmons, since we want to go there, let's go there. I think about him in the context of LGBTQ people today. I don't know if he ever came out, but it wasn't any secret back then. We all knew who Richard Simmons was, and he was very comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, it would have been redundant for him to come out like Liberace. Oh, well, there's a news flash.
You beat me to it because I was getting ready to talk about Liberace because when I was a young kid and I watched Liberace perform, or those commercials talking about Liberace, I knew he was different in the sense of he was portraying himself in a way I didn't quite understand as a child, and I didn't understand until I was an adult. But no one ever really said it out loud back then. You just didn't talk about it.
No, and let me tell you, I've been to the Liberace Museum in Vegas, and if you had any lingering doubts, that would pretty much extinguish them. But I got to add a name to the list. An actor that we all grew up with also died, I think, either today or over the weekend. James Sicking, Sikking. And if you don't know the name, you know the face if you watched Hill Street Blues. And I think he was Doogie Howser's dad.
Yep.
He paid his dues for decades and decades, like 5 or 6 of them. He was in like old episodes of the FBI. He was in every TV show of the 60s and 70s. And he just passed at, I think, the age of 90.
Yeah. He's one of those classic character actors. If you grew up in that age, you would recognize his face. You would know the various TV shows that he had performed. And back then, if you got on one NBC sitcom or TV show, you did them all. It's almost like they had the same casting director.
Yeah, if you're a fan of things of that era, you see the same people like it's a multiverse thing, and people are just being reincarnated in different roles. Sicking was also in a terrific Sean Connery movie called Outland, which was essentially...
That's one of my favorites.
I love that movie.
I don't know why more people don't talk about that movie set in space. Yes.
It's a terrific, entertaining movie. It's essentially High Noon in space.
He's like a space cop.
Connery is like a rogue space cop that nobody likes, and Sicking is one of the two heavies in the movie. And it's a great movie. It's a great Jerry Goldsmith score. And it's one of his, he was like a character, supporting actor most of his career, but he's got a big role in that. And it's worth revisiting if you want to remember him.
Now you're going to make me go home and watch Outland again tonight.
Oh, we're going to be texting each other.
Absolutely. But, if there's any silver lining to this, you maybe get to rediscover their talent. You get to have a renewed appreciation for the gems that they shared with us. I knew him more for Hill Street Blues than Doogie Howser. That was not one of the shows that I watched, but I watched Hill Street Blues.
Yeah, he was good at being kind of the uptight. There's a word I can't use on the public's airwaves. The uptight, pompous authority figure. Let me put it that way. He excelled.
Fair enough.
He excelled at that. But very memorable. This was a guy like an actor's actor. He's one of these guys who, whenever he pops up, like he was in maybe 10 episodes of the FBI from the 60s and 70s, it's going to be a solid thing you're watching.
Well, as these individuals inevitably pass, I can't speak for you, Tuwali. I'll let you speak for yourself. I know that a little piece of me is taken with them, if only because it reminds me of our mortality and the fact that we have X amount of years behind us. Even though they left us with great memories, you think they're always going to be around, and then you realize they're not.
Yeah, no, and especially Shannon Doherty bravely documented her journey towards the end in her podcast. And anyone who's ever attempted to listen to that, they will tell you will be bawling with each and every episode, not be feeling sorry for her, but just crying along with her and how brave she was in those moments of recording what she was going through. And that's someone who, again, 2 shows that I discovered while I was hospitalized for my transplant and actually fell in love with was All Things Law and Order and Charmed. Those are, for some reason or other, the 2 shows that you get while you're in the hospital. And I swear I've seen almost every episode of Charmed, all the spin-off stuff. And I said to myself, this is actually a well-written show. So when she even announced that she had cancer, I was like, oh man, no, not Shannon. I felt like I knew her. Mm-hmm. And it hurt to hear of her passing today.
Can I ask you, Tuwala, since you listened to her podcast, did she go into it all, the horrifying troubles that she had getting treatment for her cancer through an insurance company?
Absolutely.
Yes,
she held nothing back. Absolutely.
Because that's something that people should know. I mean, if you take one thing out of her grotesquely early death, she really shined a light on our horrible healthcare system, and she couldn't even get the insurance company to sign off on the treatments for her condition for something like a year, which I'm convinced made it worse.
Yes, she was so very transparent in not only her physical pain, but the pain of dealing with the business of cancer.
Unconscionable. I don't know how anybody defends this.
It's later with Mo Kelly. We have your horoscope for the week when we come back. Which zodiac signs are good with money? We'll tell you who and who is not destined for riches.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. It's Later with Mo Kelly, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. This is a list of zodiac signs, how they get rich or die trying. Aries. Hey, Elmer, what sign are you?
I'm a Libra.
Okay, just want to know. Let's start with Aries. Aries rules the head and in general tends to get ahead by whatever means necessary. Tact and patience be damned. Rich Rams include Google co-owner Larry Page, who helped expedite the search engine, fitting for a sign known for impatience. And their extravagant purchase, fireworks for their own birthday party, and grandiose floral arrangements for the many apologies they make. Taurus. Ruled by Venus, Taurus likes nice stuff and beautiful people and worships at the altar of comfort. They have a reputation for being hardworking, but are most adept at rebranding their laziness as self-care. But Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is a billionaire bull who has succeeded in taking all the effort out of making friends and staying connected, and in typical Taurus fashion, resists change to his own detriment. Extravagant purchase, a vibrator so expensive and aesthetically impressive, it moonlights as a mid-century sculpture. Oh, my damn.
So that's what Taurus is like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Bulls and ramming. Gemini. Exciting and erratic. Geminis are effective at talking people into handshake deals, used cars, and white-collar crime. Versatile with a flexible relationship to the truth, Geminis easily make their way and their enemies when it comes to business. Case in point. Fiscally fluctuating former President Donald Trump. Gemini rules the third house of communication, and natives have a famously short attention span. Apropos to this, Snapchat CEO Evan Spiegel falls under the stars of twins. Extravagant purchase, a plethora of books they will never read, but use to corroborate their conspiracy theories and expert opinions. Mark Ronner.
Well, now that was a mouthful, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I think I'm just going to stay quiet here.
Cancer. Ruled by the ever-changing moon, Cancer is intuitive, highly sensitive, and prone to moodiness, often appearing aloof or even hardened. They guard their candy-flavored emotional centers and accumulated assets with a protective exterior. Knighted Moonchild Sir Richard Branson exhibits the true compassionate nature of Cancer through his $3 billion pledge to combat global warming. Extravagant purchase, every single dog at the kill shelter. Leo. Famously fierce and vehemently vain, Leos are the best when they're in service of others, even and perhaps especially when that service is aesthetic. Leave it to a lion to make looking good lucrative, like Leo Kylie Jenner, who has amassed an unprecedented cosmetics fortune. Nepo baby. Extravagant purchase, the Venice Mirror. What did Kylie, come on now. Yeah. She's not anybody special. Virgo. An exacting earth sign. Virgo likes to be in control, believing, as they do, that no one is as capable as them of disinfecting spaces or calling shots. Virgos tend to be leaders rather than followers, owners rather than employees. As billionaire writer, producer, and director Tyler Perry explains, ownership changes everything. I own the lights, I own the sets. So that's where the difference is. Because I own everything, my returns are higher. Close quote. Extravagant purchase, artisanal water. Experimental anti-aging treatments, holy dirt, and gold bidet toilets. Libra. You listening, Libra? Okay. Consummate hosts and notorious flatterers. Libras are likable and likely to convince people to give them money without question or hesitation. Ruled by Venus, Libra trades in affability and aesthetics. Fittingly, designer billionaire Ralph Lauren, who made everyone wish they had a horse and mallet and riding crop, but persuaded us to be content with a shirt instead. He's a Libra. Extravagant purchase, a 1938 Bugatti. Scorpio, Tawala.
Yeah.
With a desire for power but no taste for publicity, Scorpions are naturally adept at identifying and capitalizing on the skill sets of others. Scorpio rules the 8th house of sex, death, and inheritance, an apropos distinction for Steve Jobs' widow, Laureen Powell Jobs, a native Scorpion and the beneficiary of her late husband's staggering fortune. Extravagant purchase, the secret love letters of disgraced dictators. Sagittarius, that's me. Blessed by Jupiter, planet of luck and abundance, Sagittarians are imbued with a natural sense of optimism that gives them the confidence to take risks, tell jokes, drive drunk, and generally shoot their shot. Really? Endlessly curious with a diverse set of skills and interests, archers usually make their money in more ways than one. Case in point, mogul Jay-Z, whose revenue streams include music, modeling, fashion, liquor selling, art collecting, and real estate. Yeah, more than one revenue stream. Extravagant purchase, stock in a psilocybin startup. That's not me. Capricorn, shrewd in business and strategic in relationships. Capricorn is built for a slow and steady climb to the top. Historically speaking, when Caps roll heavy in coins, things get weird. Case in point, Cap Daddy millionaire Howard Hughes, who spent part of his fortune building flying boats and surveilling his much younger lovers. Extravagant purchase, flying boat. Aquarius. Aquarius rules the 11th house of community, networking, social justice, and collaboration. Aquarians tend to make and spread money through their connections. As the most socially minded member of the zodiac, they believe that wealth should be shared and prosperity is a platform for humanitarian pursuits. Enter Aquarian Oprah Winfrey. You get a car. Winfrey, who's known for her charitable donations and ceaseless promotion of others. Extravagant purchase, past life regression therapy, and space travel. And lastly, Pisces. Whoop, whoop. The term doe-eyed was invented for this ilk. Their vulnerability acts as an aphrodisiac, encouraging tender-hearted strangers to fall in love and financially back them. The escape artist of the zodiac, Pisces, is prone to flee from feeling and seek solace in drugs, booze, French cinema, and the biographies of doomed singers. Fittingly, Bernard Arnault, Piscean CEO of luxury conglomerate LVMH. What the hell is that? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
Owns such fine firewater brands as Moet and Chandon, Dom Perignon, Krug, all this stuff I can't pronounce. Belvedere and Hennessy.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Money.
Okay, bottoms up to the bottom dollar. Extravagant purchase, elf ears, watercolor pencils, and Oculus headsets for all their friends. And that is your horoscope for the zodiac signs who are good with money and they are destined for riches. KFI AM 640. We are live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
If you missed it, we got it.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.